So yesterday we talked about transformations of quadratic functions, right? So the first day we talked about the vertical stretch, vertical compression. Yesterday we talked about vertical translation, up and down, horizontal translation, left and right. So this kind of came up with it's not a formula, it's more like a quadratic equation, right? So we have noticed that if we have an a multiplied by the x squared, right, we call this, what would the a do to my graph? It changes the step pattern. It's multiplied by the x squared. It gives me a vertical stretch or a vertical compression, right? Now, we also looked at if I have something added or subtracted to my x, what does this do to my graph? It translated horizontally, that's right. So it's either left or right. And then if I have something that's added outside, what does it do to my graph? Up and down translation, which is vertical translation. So altogether, they come up with this equation. Okay? So we've seen each one of them by itself. Now what happens if I have all three of them together? Okay? It comes to down to this equation, okay, where I have y equals a bracket x minus h squared plus k. This form of the equation is called the vertex form. Okay? There's three different forms that we can represent quadratic with. So one of them is the vertex form. So this is called, when I refer to it as the vertex form, I mean this format specifically. So as you can see here on the wall, I have all three different forms. I don't know if you guys can see it, but you guys should be able to see it. I have the three different forms right here. So I have the standard form, I have the factored form, and I have the vertex form. The first form that we're going to talk about in this unit, in this course, is the vertex form. It's called the vertex form because I can find what from it? The vertex. That's why it's called the vertex form. Okay? And the vertex is h and k. You guys remember that from yesterday? Right? So the vertex is the h and k that comes from that vertex form equation. Now, that a value can be also found by plugging in another point other than the vertex to solve for that a value. We're going to see like an example of this. Now, what happens if I am given this information? So the vertex of parabola is 3 and negative 7. It also passes through the point 1, negative 5. The question is, state the equation of the quadratic. So what they've given you a vertex and a point, and they want you to find the equation. All right? So they want you to find out what a is, what h is, what k is. Do I know anything right away that I can plug in? I know h and k, which come from what? From the vertex, right? So I know that h is 3, and I know that k is negative 7. So I'm going to use them, and I'm going to plug them into my equation for h and k. So that's x minus 3 squared minus 7. Anyone have any question about this part? Are we okay that it's x minus 3, even though the h is a positive 3? Right? Because it's a plus k, k is negative 7, right? If I plug it in, positive and negative gives me negative, right? Are we okay with that? If you're not okay, put your hand up, ask the question. All right. Now, what else is still missing? So what else that I still have to look for? I have to look for A. I don't know what A is. I need to find it. And this is why they give me the other information, which is another point that passes function. Okay? So I know that the other point is 1 and negative 5. So all what I have to do is I have to plug in x and y in for x and y and solve for A. Okay? So y is negative 5 equals to A, x is 1, minus 3, squared minus 7. So you see that right now I only have the variable A. Everything else is numbers. So I can isolate for that A, solve for it. BEDMAS tells me that I have to do the bracket. And then after I do the brackets, I'm going to have to do the exponents. So it's going to be 4A minus 7. Are you guys okay with this? Negative 2 squared is positive 4. Now, what do I do to solve for A? Move what to the other side? Huh? So I want A by itself and everything else on the other side. What's the first thing I want to get rid of?
4.
That's the last thing you get rid of. Okay, whatever is with the letter is the last thing you get rid of. You get rid of the negative 7 first. Okay, so bringing the negative 7 over, it's going to be plus 7. So that's 2 equals to 4A. Therefore, A is equal to 1/2 if I divide by 4. I just don't like this. And then once you do that, you just write your equation. So I replaced A with 1/2, and then x minus 3 squared minus 7, and that gives me the equation in vertex form. Yes? Do you want me to get back to it and then explain it again? What part? From here?
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to isolate for A. I want to leave A by itself. The first thing I want to get rid of is that minus 7. Remember, reverse BEDMAS? Bring the negative 7 over. It becomes a positive. Negative 5 plus 7 is a 2. So 2 equals to 4A. To get rid of the 4, it's a multiplication. I have to divide by 4. That gives me A equals to 1/2. Are we okay with that? All right. Okay, so what I want you guys to do is I want you to look at example 2, read it carefully, and then follow the same steps to find the equation.